What is pure functions in JavaScript? So pure functions is not any syntax that we need to follow. It is just a concept generally followed by the developer community to differentiate is it a pure function or impure. So the pure function means always if you are giving the same input, it will give you the same exact output. So the behavior of the function, the calculation being performed by the function will not change by any external factors. So what is the algorithm you are returning inside the function will remain and constantly generate the same output for the same input, we can say. So it's better to create the pure functions because it is easy to debug, then it is also easy to test as well, and it is easy to create an independent functionalities. Let's try to write a small function to understand it in a bit more detail. So let's say I'm creating a function here for with the name on add and giving two parameters to it. Number one, number two, and it returns number one plus number two. So this function I can call as a pure function. Why? Because if I call this particular function n number of time with the same input, it does not going to change with a different output. Always it will give me the same output even though I call it hundreds of times because it's a straightforward working inside this, and you can check if I'm giving the same input, always it should give me the same output always. So if you are keep writing these pure functions more and more, it does not create any complexity in your program. So always try to create the pure functions. Sometimes we may also need to write the impure function that we will also try to see in one of the lecture, but it's better to write the pure function in maximum cases. What is impure functions? So impure functions are the functions, if I call it repeatedly, even with the same inputs, it cannot give you the same output. It means it not only depend on the features, not only depend on the code algorithm you write inside a function, it is also depends on some external factors. That's the reason always it may not provide you the same output for the same input. And there could be some cases for that where we need to write the impure functions. Let's try to write a quick impure function here. For example, I'm writing a function with the name get count in this case. So when I'm saying get count, I don't want to give any input, for example, here. And here, I'm trying to return the count, and I'm using one count variable which is declared globally, and always before returning, I'll keep incrementing it. Now, if I call this function many times, for example, get count, so every time this function is going to give different output to me. Let's see the outcome. So 1, 2, 3. So even though the inputs are exactly the same, in three cases, the input is exactly the 0. But so, and why it's happening? Because this function is not only dependent on its internal functionality, it also depends on some external variables. That's the reason in each and every scenario, it is giving us some different results, and it might be a requirement sometimes. But what are the complications with this? So if any tester need to be tested this function called get count, he not only need to be aware with this function, but also he need to be aware with the variable declared globally. He also need to take care of that variable. Also, if you are facing some trouble in this particular function, if this function is malfunctioning, it is not working correctly, you want to debug it. So not only the functionality you need to check here, but along with that, you also need to take care about the external factors. Like in this case, the count variable, which is available globally. You need to take care about that. So these are the complications come when you write the impure functions. So there are two types of functions we can say. One is pure, second is impure. In pure, if you're giving the same input multiple times, you will get the same output multiple times. Exactly. And in impure, if you give the same number of inputs, you can get the same, but in some cases you cannot get the same output as well.